The AI release game keeps getting stranger, and today's biggest signal is that access is now part of the product, not just a footnote. Anthropic has split Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5 into two very different distribution paths, while OpenAI is still managing the rollout of GPT 5.6 under tighter scrutiny. At the same time, companies are drawing their own internal lines around which AI tools their engineers can touch. This is TSL, Byte Sized, your daily AI news brief for Monday, June 29, 2026. Let's get into it. The biggest story today is Anthropic's launch of Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5, according to Anthropic's Platform Docs. Fable 5 is generally available across the Claude API, Claude Platform on AWS, Amazon Bedrock, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Foundry, which makes it the broad default option for developers. Mythos 5 is different. It is not generally available and is being offered only in limited availability to approved customers in Project Glasswing, with access routed through Anthropic, AWS, or Google. That split matters because it shows Anthropic is treating model release like a tiered deployment strategy, not a single launch moment. For teams building products, the practical question is no longer just how capable the model is, but which version can actually be procured, approved, and deployed. It also tells us that cloud partners are now part of the access story, not just the hosting story. If you are tracking enterprise AI, this is another reminder that model availability can be as important as model performance. OpenAI is dealing with a similar access issue, but from the policy side. According to financialworld.org, the White House has pushed for tighter controls around GPT 5.6, and OpenAI has slowed the rollout in response. SecurityWeek reported that OpenAI has also introduced GPT 5.6 Sol as a limited preview, describing it as the company's most capable model for cybersecurity work. Put together, that means the launch is happening, but not as a wide-open release. The practical effect is that access is being staged by audience and use case, with security-sensitive capabilities getting extra attention. For developers and enterprise buyers, that changes planning. The newest model may arrive first through a narrow preview, then expand later if the approval path clears. It also shows how government pressure and product packaging are now moving in the same direction, with release timing tied to oversight. Meta is making its own internal move on AI access, according to CryptoBriefing.com. The publication reported that Meta is restricting engineers' use of Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex inside the company because of concerns about exposing proprietary AI training data. That is not a public product launch story, but it is still a useful signal about how large companies are managing risk around external AI tools. The issue here is not capability. It is what happens when employees use third-party systems and workflows that may touch sensitive data. For Meta, the restriction suggests a tighter internal policy around where code generation tools can be used and what information they can see. For the broader market, it shows that AI adoption inside big tech is now being shaped by data governance as much as by productivity gains. And for vendors, it is another reminder that enterprise trust is not just about model quality, but about how companies handle training data exposure. Anthropic is also expanding beyond the usual developer crowd, according to the governor of California. Governor Newsom announced a first-of-its-kind partnership that will make Claude available to all California state agencies, as well as cities and counties. The state said the rollout is meant to improve services for Californians and build on existing executive orders around generative AI and government efficiency. That matters because it puts a frontier AI tool directly into public sector operations at a scale that is broader than a single agency pilot. It also gives Anthropic a visible government deployment path that could influence how other states think about procurement. For listeners, the key thing is that AI adoption is moving deeper into administrative workflows, not just consumer apps or developer tools. And because the announcement comes from the governor of California, it signals a formal public sector partnership rather than an informal experiment. There is also a business story worth watching around Anthropic's consumer side. According to technology.org, an analysis of card transactions suggests Claude's paying consumer base and revenue have grown roughly 75% since January 2026. That is notable because Claude has long been associated with developers and enterprise teams, but this report points to broader everyday usage. If the numbers hold, it means Anthropic is seeing traction outside its core technical audience. For the company, that could affect how it balances consumer features, pricing, and enterprise priorities. For the market, it is another sign that the assistant category is still expanding in more than one direction at once. Before I let you go, keep an eye on whether OpenAI's GPT-5.6 rollout expands beyond the current limited preview, and watch how Anthropic handles access to Mythos 5 through Project Glasswing. Also worth tracking is how California's Claude partnership gets implemented across agencies, because that will tell us a lot about what public sector AI deployment looks like in practice. That is TSL, Byte Sized, for Monday, June 29, 2026. Find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. See you tomorrow.